In this video, we're going to look at concrete field testing to ASTM standards in QP6 and QEST field. After opening the work order, we see that under the New Test group, there are 3 new workflows that we can use for concrete testing. There's the new concrete sample, new fresh concrete testing, and new fresh concrete testing with field report. The new concrete sample workflow adds the sample by itself and is useful if you need to add custom sampling and testing methods or methods that are not for fresh concrete. But generally, the most common use case is fresh concrete testing. So there is a specialized workflow for that, which adds all the relevant samples, worksheets, and reports that you might want when testing fresh concrete to the ASTM standards. Clicking on this workflow will add all of those documents to the work order and show the corresponding data entry screen, which will have the look and feel of the new QP6 concrete sample. The sample itself is fairly straightforward. It includes some identification information, as well as information about the field technician. We can note that this was sampled by others if necessary, and enter our location information. We are also able to capture GPS coordinates if desired, and move on to our material details, which in this case are concrete mixes. Once we select the mix in this section, the supplier and plant will be automatically populated based on the setup of the mix. This is also true for the maximum aggregate size and specification. The specification tied to the mix is what determines the limits for that mix, including the required compressive strength at acceptance age, if there is one. And then we scroll down and move on to the data entry worksheets. We initially complete some selections around equipment and general sampling information. You'll note that my thermometer has been selected for me. This is due to a new setting for field tests that can automatically select equipment previously used by this user. This can be turned on per test or for all field tests. I'll go ahead and complete some data entry here for my sampling worksheet. As I enter the date and time batched, my other dates and times are automatically filled in for me. The date and time sampled is set with the current date and time, and since I am working on yesterday's work order, I get a warning that one of these dates seems off. You can see that these sampling dates and times that were automatically set from date batched are initially identical to it. I've also got a warning on these that they seem to need an update. They're set to the same time just to make it a little bit easier to adjust them to what they need to be, since these times are likely to be close to one another. So we will set each of these times to an appropriate value, finishing with the date and time the concrete discharge finished. Once all of the times are in, we can see that we've breached the time and truck limit of less than or equal to 90 minutes that is set on our specification. We then move on to the field tests, which include slump, air content, and temperature. Again, all my slump equipment is selected automatically for me, so I just need to enter a measurement. Similarly with my air content test. Oh, my air meter appears to not be in calibration for the test date of today. We will go ahead and ignore that for the sake of this demo. Finally, let's enter the concrete temperature value. Now that the field testing is complete, we can be done with this sample unless we're creating specimens, which we will do today. We can select specimens to be pre-created from a template of predefined specimen ages and types. This list is completely configurable, and I've got a small selection configured here. I'll select this specimen set to add. And as that's adding, it will create all the necessary specimens at the correct ages and all of the lab worksheets on those specimens and the set itself. Once added, a set has a type, a nominal size, gets a prefix that's automatically generated, and then a number of worksheets are added both to the set level and the specimen level for this concrete sample. These are all defined in the specimen set that we selected. The first set level worksheet is the making and curing worksheet for the set. This captures information about the making of the specimens and their subsequent curing. We need to know the date and time the specimens were made and the initial curing conditions, which come from a configured list. We then put in an initial curing location. This location will be referenced later when generating instructions for specimen pickup. After that point, the data is related to curing conditions like initial curing minimum and maximum temperatures, which we don't know yet, so we move on. Finally, We can see our generated specimens at the bottom of the sample, along with their generated ID numbers, ages, and test dates. I can change these details if I need to, or I can add or remove specimens. Specimens can be added with the Addition button at the bottom of the specimen grid, and deletion can occur with the Delete buttons that follow each specimen. But that's all we need to do for this first sample. Let's add a second one to see the behavior there. It is worth noting that, just like with other workflows in Quest Field, the common values from one sample to the next are retained. So again, all I need to do in this case is add a specific location. My mix is retained, my temperatures are retained, and my docket number or ticket number gets a new value, as does my date batched. Let's say this one was at 10 a.m. And then we've got another load size of 6, and we can continue with our data entry here until we're through. So I'll just skip ahead to the addition of specimens since the process is going to be very similar to the previous sample, but with fewer things to enter. Okay, so we've got our second set of specimens. We need to fill out the date and time the specimens were made and the initial curing conditions and location for this next set as well. And we'll change this last specimen to have an age of 56 days as well, just like the last sample. So we can now click Done to go back to the work order and finalize it. Finalizing the work order means that if this work order contains a concrete field report, it will be available in Report Review. Additionally, the dispatcher will see the status of the work order change in the scheduler product. One other feature to touch on in QP6 and Quest Field is the ability to see and access the test report directly from each workflow. Opening up our first sample again and scrolling down to the bottom of it shows that all reports relevant to the sample appear here. Clicking on the report number will open the report page, which will show a summary of the report data, grouped appropriately in tables. Concrete reports in QP6 are work order level reports, meaning they will actually report all of the concrete samples on a work order together. This is sample number 1, and we have sample number 2 lower down. We can also view the PDF to get a preview right here in the browser by clicking the View button. And we'll see that all of the concrete tests and all of the concrete samples for this work order are presented on the same PDF. So page 1 is sample 1, page 2 is sample 2. The ability to sign and distribute this report is controlled by the relevant user rights. We have just entered the field-related data for 2 concrete samples and checked out the resulting report after finalizing the work order. We're now done with the basics of concrete field data entry in Quest Field. Thank you.